Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another week and with it another fast and frantic top split broadcast in the iRacing official iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. And of course we are here today for the 2025 Season 3 campaign and it is week 7 of 12. We have made our way to the Netherlands for Circuit Zandvoort, recently refurbished in order to ascertain its FIA Grade 1 status and play host to Formula 1. This circuit has remained a stalwart on the European continent over its extensive history. With fast sweeping bends, hairpins and extended straights, it is a circuit that provides an absolutely brilliant technical tester ability, but with its renovations also sees now many of its major famous corners highly cambered. Therefore, overtaking around the outside is just as possible as on the inside, and it makes Circuit Zandvoort an even trickier circuit to make overtakes on, and even trickier to defend on. But as our drivers get ready to go racing here today at night time, indeed it is night time, don't adjust your TV set, we've got a brilliant race ahead of us, there's no doubt about it, as we bring you all the racing action from this Wednesday, the 30th of July 2025, 1945, that is GMT or UTC top split, and we look forward to seeing which of our drivers we run away of glory here in the Netherlands. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, brought to you on YouTube at youtube.com, and search for TX11 at TX all 30 Paul Walsh, and in the quarantine booth your racing action is covered by myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action throughout the entirety of the Season 3 campaign. But as we head into tonight then, let's recap the venues we've been to so far and what we've still got lying in wait as qualifying is currently underway. And as we can see, we've made our way through 6 weeks of brilliant racing. Last time out, we were down under at the Mount Panorama circuit in Australia. And, well, on a Saturday afternoon where we brought you the racing was absolutely superb as we looked to crown our King of the Mountain. But who exactly was the King of the Mountain there? Well, it was none other than what was a brilliant victory in the end for the driver who held on the very front. And it was Gustavo Ariel who took victory ahead of Felix Werter. Albeit a battle between Felix Werter and Aaron Lopez didn't quite work out between the two at the final corner in the final lap, and Werter was able to survive it, whereas Lopez fell down the order, and Pedro and Ribeiro, meanwhile, took third place. But now, wind forward to week number 7, we head our way into the second half of the season, and what's in store? Because Circuit Zandvoort awaits today, and after today, we've got an American triple header of Watkins Glen International, WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca, and Road America, before we head to Portugal for the Algarve International Circuit, and we bring the curtain down at the Hungaroring on Wednesday, the 3rd of September in week 12 of 12. But coming into today, let's talk a little bit about our circuit that's playing host. And as we can see, it is of course the Grand Prix layout of Circuit Zandvoort, located near the city of Zandvoort in the North Holland region of the Netherlands, spanning the best part there of 14 corners. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, the track maps that come with it. This is a circuit that many will have in their minds, where it play host to domestic racing, national racing, or alternative international racing, including the likes of GT World Challenge Europe over its extensive history, and many a Porsche Cup series as well. This circuit is no stranger to road racing at the highest levels, and we can expect the highest performances from our drivers keep competing today. But as they get ready to compete, a quick reminder of the rules, because we can't go racing without them. This is an open setup series where drivers bring their own setups to the grid for each and every week. The grid shall be set via a closed qualifying session, which is just about to conclude, and when we do see our drivers make their way to the grid, they'll commence the race via a standing start, as is the tradition of the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. Drivers shall receive drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points, and should they get to 25 instant points, they will be disqualified. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, enough rules and regulation and everything in between, we're here for the racing. Let's head to Circuit Side then and see some of our drivers putting in their final qualifying laps. And as we say, it is night time at the moment, but whilst it is going to be pitch black out there as our drivers put in their solo qualifying laps, well, when they do make the way to the grid, it'll be full of headlights there from our 6-cylinder machines, and well, it's going to be an absolute treat on the eyes, much like Tsukuba much earlier in the season. But as our drivers are all the way around with their 2 flying laps available, they are on their second flying laps if they haven't already completed them already. Well, of course, our drivers head on down here, and it's looking as though Lucas Arias right now is the fastest driver out there in the number 7, and taking provisional pole with a 34.917. But as always, Philip Hammer there, always Mr. Consistent, improves to a 35.137 as he parks up there at Tarzan Box Corner, and he decides enough's enough. And he's got his old friend and rival, Corey Lazarus, who'll be starting fourth in this grid by looks of things, as we've still got a couple of laps to get on the board. But speaking of those laps to get on the board, here is Ricardo Ree as he roars his way around. He was on the grid at Bathurst, and we got to see some brilliant driving from Ricardo at Bathurst, but a very different nature of circuit today. And what will be his abilities here? Will he be able to put on an absolutely powerful performance, or will he find himself languishing a little further behind? Well, we hope for the former, not the latter. But then again, that's why you've got variety. It really is the spice of life with regards to the racing in the Porsche Cup Series. And in terms of number of laps we're expecting 16 laps of racing over the distance today. Indeed, we've got quite a plentiful number of laps, given the lap time around here is just over 1.5 minutes. And these races normally do take the best part of 25 minutes end to end, but they are defined by laps, not by race time. But as we do see Riccardo Re making his way up towards the chicane at turns 11 and 12, well, here it's going to be hard on the brakes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some lockups when we do go racing there, particularly on the opening couple of laps where tyres and brake temperatures still need to be brought up to scratch. Well, we're on his way on past us here. He right now definitely keeping himself absolutely in contention for a top 10 start. He is currently 10th place, but he is on a personal best in Sector 2. Can he find a bit more time in Sector 3 to complete the run and put himself further inside that top 10? We head towards the line. He's going to be one of the very last drivers to do so. And with that lap, does he improve? The answer is no, he doesn't. So Riccardo Re stays 10th place, and that will be qualified complete, ladies and gentlemen, because all the drivers out there who are on laps, they've completed their 2 flying laps plus their out lap, and the only driver who's not put a lap in will be started 20th on this grid. It'll be Hussein Ketman, who'll be started all the way down in 20th place as the circuit falls silent. But as we get ready to go racing, what is our strength for field, I hear you ask? Well, for our 20 driver grid today, we have a very high strength for field. Last time out in Australia on the Saturday slot, it was 3,966, but here today, it's 4,828. Not quite matching the highs of week 1 at Spa-Francorchamps, where we did have a strength for field in the top split broadcast of 5,644. However, slightly above the week 5 top split, where we did have an average of 4,716 for the top split there. So we are seeing our second highest for this season, and well, we can expect plenty of brilliant battling, particularly when you have regular big names up there, including none other than Philip Hammer, Corey Lazarus, Marcin Gazinski, and also a little bit further on down there, of course, Riccardo Re, and we do have Gordon Haug there starting 19th. But as they make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up then for the Week 7 2025 Season 3 top split broadcast of the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT here at Circuit Zandvoort. It is going to be on pole position for Poland, Lucas Riz. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by the Slovakian driver of Gabriel Zisk. We then have Philip Hammer starting third for pole promotion esports, and he's going to be the company of Corey Lazarus, the privateer. We'll then have on row number 3 the pairing of Marcin Kaczynski and from the GTL VRT driver who started from the back of the field in Australia, but much further up the field this time. He's going to be joined on the third row of the grid there by Gareth Higgins. From the Britain, it will then be fellow countryman. It will be Hayden Bramley, who starts 7th. He'll be ahead there of Alonso Bizel. And then we do have the Turkish driver. We head to the man who starts 9th, and that is going to be Brian Scaleri. And he will be ahead of Riccardo Re from Brazil, who completes your top 10. Outside the top 10, starting 11th, it's going to be Dan Schorling, the Dutch driver there on home soil. We've taken on Christian Carlson on the 6th row of the grid, with Dennis Muller starting 13th ahead of Thomas Friesiek. And then we do have on row number 8, where it's going to be there none other than Giorgio Mazzoli ahead of Ariel Julian. We'll then have on row number 9, Vlad Zionchowski, and he will be ahead of none other than Kim Andrea Bjorland. And then we have rounded off your top 20. It's going to be the pair in there, your final row of the grid, 19th place, Gordon Haug. And then starting at 20th of all, it will be Hussein Ketman who rounds off that starting order. But an absolutely packed grid here, not quite the full 25, but we come close, and all the drivers practically in position as they get ready to go racing. They're all set, we await the lights. And as the res arrives for our 6 in the machines, it's fire and lights. And it's lights out, away we go. It's a quick start there for Lucas Riz, but Philip Hammer, meanwhile, also gets the hammer down as it's a slow start for Marcin Gazinski behind, but roaring the way into the opening corner and going through Tarzanbocht here. Well, right now, side by side, as many as they come, but everybody right now trying to jostle position. 3 wide in the mid-pack there, and as they come through, that is going to be Gazinski in ahead, as is Higgins. Alonso Biziel falls back, and there's a big bump there for Gabriel Zisk, who's out into the gravel before he's even made 3 corners, and there's drama further back, as that is Bjorland and Zionchowski, both taking a trip to the side as well. But as they bring it back together, the rest of the field pushes on. 17 drivers have survived the opening 4 corners, and right now Lucas Viz is leading ahead of Philip Hammer, as we have Corey Lazarus in 3rd place close behind. But now will we see things calm down, or will we see some drivers try to get their elbows out even sooner? Well, we're going to have to find out here as they roar the way in towards the right combination here of turns 7 and 8 into the back-to-back hairpins, if you will, and onto the brakes there goes Hayden Bramley up the inside of Scaleri and makes an absolutely deft move there and moves up into 7th place. Lovely move, but Scolari now looking around the outside of him there in the number 9. Can he make it come back? Well, he tries, but I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. And in fact, he has to back off there as they now head down towards the chicane that turns 11 and 12. But over the rise and down into the braking zone they'll come. There, Battle takes a brief pause. But further back, we see Thomas Friedrich. He's making his way onto the back there of Hussein Kettmann, who started 20th, but he's already up into 15th place. Well done to Hussein. That's been a great start for him there. And well, I think this lap is now going to end without a little bit of drama. Given the fact we had plenty of drama in the first half of the lap, but none so on the second half. But we will see whether that's going to be the reality here as one lap gets turned. And now on to lap number 2. As they come across the line then, it's Lucas Riz who leads the way, having started on pole, ahead of Philip Hammer in second. Corey Lazarus is third. Marcin Gazinski is fourth. Then you've got a little bit of gap to Gareth Higgins in fifth. A bigger gap to Alonso Bazell, who sits in sixth. He's only half a second clear of Hayden Bramley, who gets a bit wrong there to break in, but causes Brian Scolari to back off. And that's going to enable Christian Carlson to battle him side by side here into turn number 3. Well, they just about survived, but Bramley going defensive there, as did Brian Scolari. And well, Scolari there holding on to 8th place versus Christian Carlson, with Ricardo Ree in 10th place. Takes a sneak peek there, looking onto a long stretch all the way up towards turn number 5. But as he does so here, what's he going to be able to do? I don't think he's going to make a move, but he's going to go a bit defensive as they cover down. Meanwhile, Marcin Gazinski, he's got into the gravel there. That's gone all wrong for Gazinski. I'm not quite sure how he's got there, but I know how he's rejoining, and that is very gradually fighting with the steering wheel as the car refuses to grip up. He gets it back, but he drops all the way down to 12th place. He had a brilliant start, but lap number 2 has not been a lap to shout about. A run deep there from Kim Andre Bjorland, and he releases Kettmann up into 16th place. And Kevin, in fact, losing the place and then regaining at 1. He's lost 2 places in regain, what I should say. So something's got a bit rolled there as Gabriel Sisk, meanwhile, the driver who started right up all the way on the front row of the grid alongside Lucas Viz. Well, right now, he's trying to come back here, and we'll have to get a replay of that race starting exactly went wrong because he had the slowest start of everybody when we went green flag racing and very quickly found himself in the gravel at turns 2 and 3. But as he tucks in behind Bjorland, from them, looking back to the front of the field, well, there's your leaders. They're battling side by side, and Riz on the outside, Hammer on the inside here as they head up towards turn number 1. Lap number 3 gets underway, but sort of to door they go, and as they do, Corey Lazarus, the fastest driver of the top 3, he looks on as Hammer dives to the inside there, and he will cause Riz to go out wide, but Corey Lazarus latches up the inside here. Now it's Lazarus versus Hammer into turns 2 and 3. Left and to right they come. Lazarus takes the lead of the race. Contact there between Riz and Hammer. Hammer forced out a little bit wide there. That will put him low initially going to turn number 4, but he brings it back together, and now Riz gets a much better run there as they head onto the stretch, and as they come down, well, you can see there, Riz is very close, but he's being patient as we jump on board here with the second place runner, and well, right now the number 7 trying to take on the number 4. It's going to be slow in, slow out, says the back of Corey Lazarus' wing. However, I think he's going to want to be slow in and fast out here, given the fact that he's under a lot of pressure as they head through the right-hand kick. But coming over that apex curve and now into turns 9 and 10 they go, and Riz right here so close he could reach out and touch the rear wing of his rival, but he won't want to do that because otherwise he'll pick up a fine. And as he goes from right into left here, well, right now trying to eye out this move as much as humanly possible, but I think it's going to be a question of when, not if he's going to get another opportunity, or Philip Hammer's going to try and take that opportunity of him, because they roar the way down towards turn number 11. Well, Hammer's right there, but meanwhile Alonso Pizzell falling back to 4th. Well, he's come to be ahead of Gareth Higgins. He's gained 4 places since the start, has our number 16 driver of Brazil, one of the biggest gainers at the start of this race, inside the top 10, but right now he's under a bit of pressure as Higgins is definitely starting to build some momentum. We're coming out of 13 in towards 14, completely flat out through here now. It used to not be flat out when it was a much less cambered corner, but with the camber introduced for Formula 1, it's made it flat out for a lot of classes. But as we do see there side by side, that is Gabriel Sis going around the outside of Gordon Haug through turn number 13. That's unconventional, but he's found the grip there in the yellow and black machine. Well, heading across that timeline, he now makes way up into 12th place, and Haug is under pressure here from Dan Schuling. And Schuling looking for the move here, goes the inside down towards turn number 1. Remember, you can defend turn 1 on the outside as much as the inside if you're willing to carry the momentum and the confidence. And there's a tap to the rear there of Haug's car from Kettmann. He goes deep in order to respect the fact he's gained an unfair advantage, and well, Gordon Haug there being ejected forward, and I don't think he'll be too happy about the one because he's got a big imprint now in his rear bumper. But as they calm it down for a brief moment, well, we take a look back at the drama right at the start of the race, including how exactly it all went wrong for Gabriel Zisk right at the beginning. Now this is looking to the man who started second on this grid, quite convenient given he was the door number 2. But as we went green flag racing, what exactly happened? We had a good start and then suddenly, all the wheel spin in the weld. And look at the reactions there from Corey Lazarus. Dive into the inside wall, just squeezing on through. So Gabriel Sisk already losing 3 places practically in the space of 1 misstep to launch. And then he was 3 wide here coming into turns 2 and 3. And he had a car on his inside. Couldn't quite discern who that was. Was that Higgins there made contact? I'm not sure, but that's what ejected him out wide. Subsequently, we had this for Bjorlund and Zajanchovski. They were further back, but they were fighting their way up towards turns 2 and 3. And as they went into the corner, a small tap there, and that sent Bjorlund on around, and with it, Zajanchovski followed him off the road. Well, that was their start of the race, and on lap number 2, we had this for Marcin Gazinski, who was at the time running comfortably inside the top 10, made his way out a long stretch in towards turns 7, and as he came on down, big cut loose there at the rear of the car, and that's how he got to the gravel. We caught him once he'd made his way to the gravel, and that explains the story for him. Then we had this happen for Hussein Kitzman on lap number 3, and this was in the same corner as where it went wrong for Gazinski a lap before. Is it the same mistake? And the answer is he just ran deep there. He understeered. No rear letting go there, just understeered for Kitzman and released the places behind him. Thomas Frisier made his way wide, so a bit of disaster for many a driver. And then this happened later on in lap number 3. And this was coming into turns 9 and 10, so out of 9 they went. This was Ricardo Reed, the Brazilian driver, under a bit of pressure, tapped up the inside there, and that was, I believe, Giorgio Mazzoni looking for the move, but they both went round the end, but Mazzoni was able to get the power back down. Meanwhile, Reed had to stop the car, and those were your major incidents on the opening 3 laps. But let's return to your live racing, and as we do, Corey Lazarus has left the lead. In fact, he's dropped all the way down to 6th place, because this is now Philip Hammer, your leader we're looking at. Alonso Pizel's moved up to 2nd, and Gareth Higgins up into 3rd. We've lost Riz and also Lazarus. I get the feeling they've both made contact with each other, and as a result, we're going to have to try and take a look back at that very shortly, as Lazarus right now is all over the back of Brian Scolari, but he's going to have to try and find a way through. Now, what can he do here? That's going to be the problem, because the fact this Zandvoort circuit, we've seen already the opportunities for 2 wide are plentiful. However, going 2 wide doesn't always necessitate you're going to make a move immediately, and it does cost you a lot of time because every corner can essentially be fought through around here. There are a couple of exceptions. For example, the chicane at turns 11 and 12 you don't want to really go too wide into, but the exceptions are quite rare. But coming down towards turn 1, that is Higgins up the inside of Brazil, and meanwhile Scolari versus Lazarus. And Brian Scolari holding the outside line, chops off the nose of Lazarus and holds on to 5th. So Higgins is up into 2nd. Meanwhile, Scolari is still holding on to 5th versus Lazarus there, as we did have the 2 battles going into turn 1 simultaneously. But in terms of how Lazarus fell down the order, we will find out a bit about that very shortly as we jump aboard here with Corey Lazarus in the number 4. And as he powers his way through the stretch up towards turn number 7 again, well, what can he do this time? Well, I think he's going to play the patience game here, but look at the rotation on entry as he's got so much confidence on the front end of the car compared to Scolari, who doesn't have as much confidence at quarter entry. His confidence comes mid-apex, where he's able to get the power down a bit better than Lazarus, but Lazarus right now carrying huge amounts of speed into these corners. The car's set up very well. He's got a very aggressive driving style when he needs to. He has this ability, does Corey. Over the years I've watched him race Porsche Cup, whereby he loves corner entry. If he can get the nose of the car into the corner, he carries so much speed to the apex compared to his rivals. But of course, that means when he goes to moves, he does have to really roll the dice if he's going to go for a lunge, because a lot of the time, of course, the idea is that you're slow in, you're fast out. That's the mantra of cornering. But for Corey Lazarus, it really is fast in, fast out. He really goes to that approach, but it comes at the cost, of course, of front end really doing all the hard work, and the fact his rivals may not expect him to go for it. But there, having to back off through the latter half of the lap, he falls back to degree versus Scolari, and now he's going to have to try and attack again on lap number 7. Just behind them, Christian Carlson fighting here with Hayden Bramley. Carlson is the lead car as they head down towards turn number 1. Bramley's going to look up the inside. This is the fight for 7th place. And then the number 5 looks up the inside. Well, Hayden Bramley was the driver who came into contact, we believe, with Sisk at the start of the race. It was the Bramley-Sisk incident. And Hayden Bramley makes his way through there, back into 7th as Christian Carlson runs a little bit wide coming out to turn at number 1. Didn't quite get it right. Bramley almost makes his way to the tyre barrier there, coming out to turn number 4, but just avoids the instant, and now making his way all the way up towards turn number 7. We're now picking up the pieces once again. We look back to Vlad Zajanchovski, and right now the number 20 driver here, the lowest rated driver in this split, so therefore the driver with the biggest I-rated gains to be theoretically made. Well, he's holding on there to 16th place. And we're trying to chase down Hussein Kitman, but it's not quite working out at this time, and I think he's having to just play the patience game here, and I think all the drivers now starting to settle down. But as they do, that gives us a primary opportunity to take a look back at exactly what's happened to both, well, Lucas Riz and none other than Corey Lazarus on lap number 5. There was an instant between the two of them, and here's the quick replay. Now, this was the pair of them making their way down towards turn 1. Lazarus was leading at the time. Lucas Riz came barreling into the corner. That was very far back. Lazarus went to turn in, didn't see that Riz had come in like a missile, and in the end, well, the missile hit its target, but unfortunately also lost a fit or two there in terms of the speed through the corner, and Lucas Riz falling down, not as much as Lazarus, but that explains what happened between the two. So a nasty lunge there, and it didn't quite work out. I think that must have been a mistake under braking from Lucas Riz, because I can't imagine he would have done that intentionally. I think he missed his brake marker and hoped by diving to the inside that Corey would see him coming and open up the steering, but Corey Lazarus did not see the wayward driver. Meanwhile, back to your live racing, we head towards the halfway point of this race, and Kim Andrew Bueland, meanwhile, making a move on Dan Shirling. Shirling there flashes his lights. He's not too happy about the fact he's been passed right now, unless there's been a bit of drama between the two of them previously, and we haven't seen it. There could, of course, been, but there's a big flash of lights there. I think right now, in fact, Dan Shirling just tested out his lights and also tried to get into his rival's head. However, Bueland is not showing any signs of making any mistakes there as much as Shirling would like him to. But things are closing up a little bit further up the road and further down the road, as meanwhile, in 20th place, this is Ariel Julian, who's all over the back of Thomas Viziak. And we're right now the number 17 car here, trying to find a way through. A lot of power oversteer there, coming out of turn number 4, and it's very hard to get turn 4 right, I can tell you, because you've got to go high, and you've got to have confidence of that. The natural centripetal forces on the car, which push the car inwards towards the apex, but also enable you to carry the speed, you are able, essentially, to carry that speed round. But Julian there just not having the confidence. The car started to lose momentum, and with it, the rear started to kick loose when he fed the throttle back in. So Ariel Julian there, falling back down to 20th place, and falling off of Thomas Viziak. Meanwhile, well, from them, it's battling into the chicane. You don't normally go too wide here, but Riccardo Rui decides, yes, you do, and he's moved up into 10th place. That's on Giorgio Mazzoli ahead of Dennis Mueller. But here we can see Mueller looking up the inside. In fact, no, he's looking around the outside there. Let me correct myself. And as they come through the right-hander and in towards turn number 14, well, there's going to be no change between them for now. Dennis Mueller still close as they power their way onto the start-finish straight. Lap number 9 comes up for them, and when they do, well, it's going to be now close. But how close is it going to be? Well, Mueller's here going to look up the inside this time. Giorgio Mazzoli on the outside. Doesn't carry the momentum, but does he get the cut back here? And the answer is going to be no, he doesn't, as we ride on board, looking back from Dennis Mueller's car. The number 11 driver back up to his door number now in terms of his position on the circuit, and roaring his way in towards turn number 4 here. Well, difference of lines there. You can see Mazzoli looking to go much higher on entry and try to carry all the momentum around. Dennis Mueller, meanwhile, trying to really be aggressive on the brake and essentially scoop his way up into the bank into turn 4 and then rotate the car as he bleeds the speed through the run uphill and then carry all the momentum on around. Two different ways of approaching turn number 4, and both drivers absolutely equal as they head up towards 7. As they power their way through the kinks and curvature of the Bentley Straight. Well, through 7 they come, and in towards 8, 9, and then 10. Coming through turn 9's hairpin right now. And with Dennis Mueller definitely started to establish a little bit of control over this 11th place spot. His next target with Riccardo Rui, who is 1.2 seconds ahead of him. Gordon Haug, meanwhile, runs very deep there, coming into turn number 9, and that gives the door wide open to Marcin Kaczynski, as Kaczynski there making the move and making it look straightforward. But I wouldn't be surprised if Haug could make a mistake, but keep in mind he started all the way down in 19th place. Well, the door number 19 driver here, I think, wary of the fact that he has the number 6 driver who's just passed him, and given that Kaczynski started all the way up on the 3rd row of the grid, he doesn't really want to fight a driver, at least right now, who in theory is a much faster driver and would naturally overtake him. And that's what you've got to think about here. This may be a sprint race, but if you can save yourself losing some time battling with a much faster driver, then the theory is that Kaczynski will pull Haug all the way up to Mazzoli, who is 9 seconds up the road, and therefore become a bit of a disruptive force. And Haug as well doesn't want to fight too much, because otherwise he'll be pulled backwards towards like a Kitman and Zanchowski, and he doesn't want to end up battling with them if he can help it. So there's a lot of thinking going on here for our drivers, because of course every place is pivotal. However, you've got to know when to pick your fight and when you can gamble or lose a place versus when it's worth fighting for that position. And Haug there, I think, making the right call with regards to where his race exactly sits. But looking back to Zanchowski, as he gets a really good run to turn number 4, practically on the back of Ketman there, and out of the rise he comes, and in towards turn number 5. And as he does so, well, Hussein Ketman here under increasing pressure as Zajanczowski does have Kim-André Bjorlund just behind. They're fighting over 15th place here, and Zajanczowski gets very close towards turn 7. Can't find a way in at the moment, but definitely trying to milk some pressure here on to the Turkish driver in front of him. And as he roars his way to the right-hander of turn number 8, well, look at that. Bjorlund gets so close, he almost taps the rear of Zajanczowski, who had to back off there for the concertina effect into turn number 8. Now these three separated by 3 tenths apiece as they make their way from right into left into the switchback portion of the hairpins here, and coming all the way around, a tap to the rear of Zajanczowski. That was from Bjorlund, almost loses the rear of the car. However, gets it settled down there, but it goes to show you that Bjorlund is much faster in the latter half of the lap by comparison with his rivals. He seems to be much happier with these low-speed corners, but now he's got to find a way to get through. Zajanczowski goes deep, he goes to the gravel, and well, Bjorlund's going to try and look around the outside. He'll be given the space, and he'll make the move stick there, but that's some mental pressure being applied to Vlad Zajanczowski, and in the end, it takes its toll, and Kim-André Bjorlund moves up to 16th. Meanwhile, Hussein Ketman holds on to 15th, and he'll be smiling right now because they've been fighting each other hard behind, and it gives him some breathing room. But for what's going on towards the back of the field, let's come towards the very front. And it's still Philip Hammer who leads, as we say hello there to Mac Racing in the YouTube chat, who does cheer on Philip Hammer. And, well, it's always good to see you in the chat. And if you are there right now, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi, whoever you are, because here we're all friendly in the iRacing Porsche Cup community. Indeed, the only biting we do is under braking with regards to these carbon ceramic brake discs. But as Hammer makes his way in towards turn number 9 for the 11th time of asking, well, he is not alone because he has Gareth Higgins and Lucas Riez right behind him. That's your top 3, and it's a further 1.5 seconds before you do get to Alionso Bazell, who sits in 4th, and in a very confident 4th right now, ahead of Brian Scolari, who wraps up the top 5 a further 1.5 seconds behind. So it's really the fight for the podium positions right now, including the win that's the big question mark. But Hammer, of course, does have one asset up his sleeve. We know his strength over the race distance is his consistency. As for the first time today, we see him run wide there at turn number 12. Indeed, I've been made to mark my words by the German, and I think right now, if he watches this back afterwards, he's going to have a chuckle at that one, because it seems whenever I applaud him for his consistency, he does seem to make a minor error of some description. But then again, let's not talk about it. The commentator's curse can't be applied, am I right? But we're on his way down towards turn number 1 right now. Well, he's still got another 5 laps to go, and Hammer and Higgins and Riez right now are your top 3 altogether. Keep an eye on, of course, that Lucas Riez was leading at this race early on. Then we did have Hammer battle with Riez, only for Corey Lazarus to decide to take the place off the two of them coming out of turn 1. But then it was a dive to the inside into turn 1 from Riez on Lazarus, where it was a mistake, we believe, in terms of he missed his brake mark and had to dive and try and put the car out of the attacker position, when then Lucas Riez and Lazarus came to blows, and Philip Hammer inherited the lead as a result of the chaos. But coming a bit further down the order, well, they're side by side. And it's going to be Ketman on the inside, me on Bjorlund on the outside. And we'll see why they come through the right-hander of Tarzanbocht, and all the way they go up towards turns 2 and 3 here, side by side. And in the end, Ketman backs out there. 9, you can't go to the inside of turn number 3. It's dangerous to do so just because of how close the apex arises from the entry point of the corner. You practically have to brake the best part of 50 metres earlier to make an inside line there compared to the actual outside racing line, and therefore Bjorlund used that to his advantage to force his rival backwards. We can see just behind that is Zajanczowski, who's running 17th place. He's got Dan Schuling in close company behind him, with Thomas Fiziek and Ariel Julian all closing back up to each other as they head towards the closing stage of this race. There's battles inside the top 10, particularly inside that top 5, and there's battles outside of it. But you can see there's Zajanczowski going defensive, looks to dive up the inside of Ketman, but not quite able to make the move stick. From them, we can now come back all the way to the bottom end of the top 5, and we jump aboard with Brian Scolari. He's chasing after none other than Alionso Bazell, but behind him, look at this, and here comes a move. It's looking to his left-hand side, and it's going to be there. Bramley, Hayden Bramley looking up the inside. It's going to be too wide on the braking, and will Bramley get it done? Well, he gets it to the inside of the corner. Scolari, meanwhile, hold it all the way around the outside. Bazell goes deep. He goes deep, completely misses the mark, and drops all the way down to 7th, and that releases Corey Lazarus on pass. But Hayden Bramley moves up into 4th place. It's a smooth move there for the number 5 driver, and the Brit are right now gaining another place here, but 4 seconds now is the gap from 4th place to 3rd, so definitely all this fighting has put the podium finishes well up the order. And well, you can imagine the only way now we will see any of these drivers potentially take a podium is if there's drama between Riez, Higgins or Hammer. But we hope not for drama, we hope for brilliant battling, as we always do. And we normally do see it, to be fair. And as Hayden Brownlee comes down through turn number 8 right now, well, he'll be looking to try and make the breakaway here. He started in 7th. He's gained 3 places since the start. He's done a fantastic job of this, albeit right now, as he has a big power slide there coming out of turn number 9. Gets the power down very aggressively and catches the car or thereabouts. Further back, that's going to be 8th place now to Gabriel Zisk, who's made another place up after his difficult start and passing Christian Carlson there into turn number 9. But how exactly did he get the move done? Here's the replay to explain. So Ziska there very close by him, flashing his lights, trying to get into his rival's head. Made the way out of turn number 8 and well, looked up the inside. I think Christian Carlson went to turn in, saw what was happening and decided, okay, I'm going to hold that outside line as best I can. But Gabriel Ziska there just able to get the power down much more happily and making that move count in short order. And that's how he's moved up to 8th place. So back to your live racing, and in good time as well, because lap number 14 comes on the cards. And as it does, Philip Hammer now under increasing pressure from Gareth Higgins, with Lucas Rears falling a little bit further behind. You can see them all together, and then the top 5 just makes its way into the rear of the camera shot for a brief moment. And well, that's the 4-second gap between the top 3 and 4th place being evidenced on your screens. But coming over the rise here, well, Philip Hammer knows he's just got to hold his momentum, because the thing for Gareth Higgins right now, as much as he is getting close, he's still got to prove himself to be the faster driver. What do we mean by that exactly? Well, it's one thing to match the pace of the leader. It's another thing to have a little bit more pace than the leader to be able to make an overtake. And Hammer's consistency has been absolutely faultless. Higgins, to be fair, has matched him every step of the way, but Higgins has to find the extra 5% if he wants to make a move, or at least try to goad Hammer into an error. That's the only other thing he can rely on here, is that Hammer potentially gets it wrong, although if Hammer gets it wrong right now, well, we will not be expecting that at all, because he's normally the most faultless of the ball. But Higgins right now, definitely you can see coming out of turn 10, not able to stay as close as he would like. Gap opens up by a 10th as they break the way now down into the chicane. And Higgins having to be much more aggressive there over the apex curve of turn number 11 in order to make sure that Hammer's not able to continue to expand that gap. It comes at its risk. If he hits that curb too high with the front right tyre, it can massively unsettle the car. He has taken a gamble every time he cuts it a little bit finer. And well, if he gets it too far, it'll unsettle the car and it'll send it into the gravel at 12. And that'll be his race done and dusted as it comes down off the curb and it can damage the suspension. On to lap 15 they go. Personal best there for Philip Hammer, 35.321. He's not reached his peak pace, but he did set a purple middle sector that last lap. So Hammer right now continuing just to manage this race and manage his pace. Gareth Higgins, meanwhile, is now having to try and find a way to throw something at this, with Riz falling a little bit further back. 6 attempts to the 3rd place man behind, and there you can see him on the rear as we look over the top rear wing of Gareth Higgins' car, and Lucas Riz, meanwhile, the number 7 driver, he's there or thereabouts, but he is losing touch with this battle, and I can imagine he's going to be a third-party player in this now as they head towards the very end. But from them, we look back to a battle into turn 1, and this is the fight for 14th. But around the outside of Gordon Haug goes Kim Andre Bjorland. Another move there. Does he get it stopped in time? He does. The car tried to cut loose at him, but made it happen. And, well, moves up into 14th place. Another position gained. Meanwhile, there's been a bit of drama further back as Ariel Julian is right now chasing after Hussein Ketman and fighting hard there. Goes low here into turn number 4. He'll gain the initial momentum, but then suddenly realises he loses everything as he tries to go up the banking. And Ketman holds on. Vlad Zanchovsky, meanwhile, now all over the back of him as they fight over 19th place. But roaring the way up towards turns 5 and 6, bouncing over the curbs there, which represent the club circuit. Well, right now, Zanchovsky close, but not quite close enough as they roar the way down and out of turn number 7. I can imagine on the next lap, if not coming in towards the hairpin sequences here of turn 9 and 10, as we see a run wide there from Ketman, a brief run wide. Well, Vlad Zanchovsky here really trying to toss everything at this, but I don't think he can find a way through. From them, we go on to our final lap. The white flag waves, and it's Philip Hammer who leads ahead of Higgins and Riz as they head in towards the opening corner. And here we go, then, ladies and gentlemen, a battle for the top 3 spots. It's going to go all the way to the wire, but will it be Hammer who wins? Will it be Higgins who takes the victory, or will Riz be able to fight a way past the 2 of them? And remember, Hammer was our winner in week number 3, and he has been a regular on the top split podium over the course of this season so far. Meanwhile, Higgins and Riz both chasing down their first wins on the top split broadcast. So can Hammer here make it 2 wins in 7 weeks of racing? We're going to find out as they roar the way down towards turn 7. He seems to be in confident control here of this race as he heads onwards. Further back, we do have their Corey Lazarus getting very close to Brian Scaleri for 5th place. In fact, he's so close at this point, I think he could practically push the man around the corner. He's going to try and look for a move into turn number 8. Scaleri all over the shop there, coming through 8. The car bouncing around. That's not a happy Porsche, but in the end has to go defensive here down into the hairpin. And Corey Lazarus looks at the switchback. Can he go around the outside now, coming into turn number 10. He's going to try, or will it be another switchback move? It's going to be a switchback, but Scoleri sees it happening and parks it on apex. Well, that's going to stop their battle for a brief moment. And back to the front, and Lucas Rears has fallen away from the top two. So now it's going to be Hammer versus Higgins to the line, albeit Hammer with 4 attempts. He's just got to now turn 13, and then the rest is surely committed to history. He roars his way out the final major corner, and now flat out all the way. And well, for Philip Hammer, he may not have started on pole, he started third, but he picked up the places where others lost their call. And for Philip Hammer today, he takes another win in the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT ahead of Gareth Higgins by 2.5 attempts. Lucas Rears completes the overall podium ahead of Hayden Bramley, who takes 4th, with Brian Scoleri holding on to 5th ahead of Corey Lazarus. It'll be Alonso Bazell who takes 7th. 6 places lost, but he's recovered in the end. So Gabriel Zisk is 8th place. Of Christian Carlson takes 9th, and then it will be Ricardo Ree who started 10th, and that's exactly where he finishes. 5.5 seconds behind him, it will be Dennis Mueller ahead of Jojo Mazzoli, and then we do have in 13th place Marcin Kaczynski, and well, he's finished his race already, I believe. We briefly lost him to the ether there, but he's come back onto circuit. We're going to have 14th place go the way of Gordon Howe as he heads towards the line, just holding off Thomas Friedrich there in order to complete the top 15, and then it'll be Kim Andre Bjorland in 16th place ahead of Dan Schuling, who comes across the line, and then in the battle for 18th, it'll be Hussein Kitman ahead of Ariel Julian, with an unfortunate retirement on the final lap for Vlad Zayanchovsky. But what exactly happened to Zayanchovsky? Here's the replay to explain, folks, and well, I think it was when he was pushing so hard, we left him here coming into turn number 9. He absolutely threw everything at the corner. A lot of power oversteer there, but got it together. Then looked up the inside of Ariel Julian, tapped him around, and well, for Zayanchovsky, that damage was race ending by looks of his fact. He got it restarted, but I believe after that, some damage. In fact, that was race ending damage, and for Zayanchovsky, it was a move too late in the day. With that, let's take a look at your race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. And after a brilliant 16 laps of racing, as we say hello there to Maxim Racing, and good evening to you, Maxim Racing. Hope you're doing well and appreciate you've been enjoying the coverage. What we do see there for the Week 7 Top Split broadcast in the 2025 Season 3 campaign here at Circuit Zandvoort in the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT, Philip Hammer took victory for Pole Promotion Esports by 2.5 attempts over Gareth Higgins. The privateer from the United Kingdom did well to take second, seized those opportunities, having started all the way down in 6th, and he was ahead of the pole man who turned 3rd in the end, Lucas Rears there, the Polishman, who in the end, with that altercation between himself and Corey Lazarus, threw away an opportunity at the victory, but still will take a podium. Hayden Bramley taking 4th there, the Briton enjoying a good run from 7th on the grid to 4th place. He managed to hold up the charge of the SART with MC team driver of Brian Scoleri, and then we did see outside the top 5 Corey Lazarus only half a tenth behind at the finish line, but still comfortably ahead by 1.5 seconds over Alonso Bizel. In 8th place, it was Gabriel Zisk, and from the Slovakian driver, it was then the combination of Christian Carlson in 9th, and he was ahead of Ricardo Ree for Racing Esports by only 6 tenths a line, and Ricardo Ree completing your top 10. In 11th, it was Dennis Mueller, who had a brilliant battle with Giorgio Mazzoli all the way to the checkered flag, with Marcin Kaczynski taking 13th place in a frustrating race for the man who put it all towards the very front of the field, but in the end, it did not quite work out the way it wanted it to. He started 5th, but fell all the way down after an early race incident. Behind the GTL with VRT driver, it was then Gordon Howe for Sim Racing Norway, and Thomas Friedrich for Team Zach Matt, who completed your top 15. Then we had Kim Andre Bjorland in 16th place, ahead of Dan Schulin, with Hussein Kitman and Ariel Julian rounding off your finishers on the lead lap, and retired with a lap to go. However, he will be classified as a finisher. Vlad Zayanchovsky, a frustrated day today for the number 20 driver. He started all the way down in 17th place, but he'll take a 20th place finishing position. So that concludes our racing here today in the Netherlands, and what a round of racing it was. It may have been at night time, and indeed visibility may have been poor, but under the headlights of our drivers' machines, they did not stop from pushing each other absolutely to the limit, all in the name of the Porsche Cup. But, of course, we should give a special mention, a big thank you to our title sponsor for this season, CONSPIT, and let's tell you a little bit more about the sim racing hardware provider. If you are looking to take your sim racing to the next level, then why not consider CONSPIT? As the pro driver's choice of sim racing hardware, CONSPIT offers one of the most comprehensive lines of hardware products to sim racers around the world. Whether you're in the market for wheelbases, steering wheels, pedals, peripherals, or rigs, CONSPIT's extensive experience in the motorsport industry means every one of their products is fine-tuned for success at the highest level. But do not just take our word for it. We're brand ambassadors including 2022 Grand Prix Macau GT Cup champion Luo Kaliu, 2022 Porsche Carrera Cup Asia champion Liu Ye, 2022 Chinese Touring Car Championship champion Rodolfo Avila, and 2023 GT World Challenge Asia GT3 Cup champions Climax Racing. You shall be in pole position for victory when you invest in CONSPIT's hardware. If you'd like to know more, be sure to head to conspit.com today. But with that, and a big thank you to our title sponsor for this season, CONSPIT. As always, it's massively appreciated. We wrap up week number 7. There's plenty more days of racing to go at Circuit Zandvoort if you feel up to it, but we're going to be turning our attentions now to week number 8 in a week's time, and with it the commencement of an American triple header, and it all begins in the US state of New York at the affectionately loved Glen, or Watkins Glen International as it's known in full. Now it's heavily cambered corners. It's not going to feel too dissimilar from Circuit Zandvoort, but it's also got extended straight, and that is where we can see the drag races to each and every corner apex. How will our drivers get on there? We'll tune in a week's time as we'll be bringing you all the top split racing action as it goes live, and that will be from the 1945 GMT or UTC, that's Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Coordinated Time slot, on Wednesday the 6th of August 2025. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been the iRacing Porsche Cup by CONSPIT. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, have a great rest of your week. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and much like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.